The story begins with Ein von Iter, the head of the Sea Guardian family, who is located in the northern continent, protected by the imperial family. The Iter Duchy guards the mystic sea of the Southern Gate, a place imbued with strange powers and bizarre events, where monstrous creatures are frequently encountered. As they continue to fend off these monsters, the influence of the Iter family grows, prompting the imperial family to begin keeping the Iter family in check. The imperial family could not stand idly by while the Iter family expanded their influence any further. Thus, they plotted to marry off the daughter of a powerless family to diminish their power. When the imperial family proposed a marriage, it was declared that he would marry any woman who proposed to him as he had no choice. The barony of Levois chose their firstborn daughter, who was soon to turn 12. It did not matter who his bride was, as he wouldn't enjoy married life anyway. In fact, it would be fortunate if she didn't flee, suffocated by the oppressive air of the mist. When the day finally arrived, the carriage brought the girl he was supposed to marry. He was irritated, but this was expected. Inside the carriage was a small, petite girl with pink hair and orange eyes, holding a bouquet of pink flowers in her hand. This girl thought to herself, "Is this the creep who wants to marry a 5-year-old? In her previous life, she had been a commoner who could not even gain entry into a magical academy despite her determination to rise. She taught herself magic and eventually achieved the rank of a grand magician. She joined forces with her comrades from the magic tower, and together they succeeded in defending their homeland and defeating the evil dragon that had terrorized the nation. Just when she thought everything was over, she was betrayed by the comrade she had trusted most. In that moment, she realized that her great life had ended with the betrayal. However, she heard voices of a doctor saying that if he were to give her the Cilia herb, she wouldn't die immediately. Surprisingly, she discovered that she was the other daughter of the barony of Levois family, which seemed great at first but quickly turned disheartening when a woman declared that they could not afford anything so expensive on a regular basis. The woman insisted that the girl was simply a child he had fathered with a maid, so he must deal with it himself. With no funds to provide for her, they had no choice but to give up on saving her. She was given a new life as Natia de Levois, the daughter of a baronial family. However, because her heart remained that of a grand magician, the child's body could not handle it. After her father gave up on her, the Baroness began to mistreat her, forbidding her from going outside because her illness could be contagious. Her mana consumed her young heart, making her health deteriorate further. She had to endure pain day by day. One day, the evil Baroness entered her room with maids by her side, ordering them to cover up this child's scars. They grabbed her and began to cover her scars, prompting her to question what they were doing to her. Suddenly, she started coughing up blood. Yet the Baroness showed no concern, thinking that she was disgusting and perhaps trying to spread her illness. All she cared about was the clothes the girl would wear. When Nisha saw the wedding dress, she was horrified. Why was it being given to a 5-year-old? The woman declared that from that day forward, she would become a bride and was to be married to Duke Iter. Back in the present, the Duke gazed at her in surprise as their eyes locked. He looked at a guard, exclaiming they couldn't be serious about this child being his bride. However, a knight explained that his family had accepted the proposal. Who would have expected a child to be chosen for marriage? Yet if he sent the carriage back like this, the bride would carry the disgrace of an annulment for the rest of her life. He declared that the prank that Levois played on Iter would not be forgotten. He looked down at her and she thought that he was unnecessarily handsome. He politely excused himself for a moment, kneeling down and extending his hand toward her. She felt a familiar scent coming from him, the scent of a sea dweller. He took the bouquet from her hand, and she placed her hand in his. The pain of this situation didn't compare to the crushing pain in her heart. This was nothing. However, it felt strange to be stared at like this by someone she barely even knew, so she pulled her hand away. Feeling shy under his gaze, he clenched his fist, his veins bulging with barely contained frustration. But he declared that he hereby accepted the young lady of the Levois family as part of his family. However, he would only do so if she agreed to become his adopted daughter. She thought that being the adopted daughter of a duke would be a good thing. It was remarkable for him to go this far for someone he had just met, but she wondered what his real motive was. Righton had also said he wanted to slay the evil dragon for the greater good, but in the end, he had taken her life because he wanted the title of Dragon Slayer all to himself. Even if she declined this proposal, she couldn't return to the Baron's house. Until her heart was stable, wouldn't it be okay to stay for a while? Thus, she agreed without hesitation. She would accept anything, even if it meant being a servant instead of an adopted daughter. Suddenly, she felt weak and dizzy, as if a huge weight had been placed on her shoulders, causing her to fall onto the Duke's chest, which took him by surprise. He ordered the maid to hurry and call for someone. In the next scene, she found herself sound asleep in bed. When she woke up, she was wearing new clothes, and her new room was very spacious. However, she was confused about where she was. Suddenly, someone entered and asked if she knew where she was. It was a woman with brown hair wearing a green dress. Her name was Izeltha, and from now on, she would be serving Lady Nashia. Nishia requested that she treat her kindly. Izeltha noted that although the furniture in the room was for adults and might feel a bit uncomfortable, she should not worry because everything would be custom-made soon, so she must bear with it for now. As she looked at Nashia, she thought about how absurd it was for the Baron to be such a crazy person. Even without hearing her thoughts, Nashia could tell what Izeltha was thinking. Izeltha then mentioned that the master had prepared a special gift for her, presenting a very large purple item that he had put a lot of thought into. As it turned out, it was a giant purple lollipop. It may have been candy, but it looked like a shield. After she overreacted earlier, Nashia felt a slight pain in her heart. Izeltha inquired if she was all right, informing her that the doctor would be there soon, so she should not worry. In her past life, Nashia had not had good relations with doctors, who often lectured her about her health. She pondered if the doctors were going to scold her for being startled by a piece of candy. The reason she was feeling unwell was that her body was too weak to properly handle the mana. If she could just calm herself down, she would be fine. After a bit of concentration, she informed the maid that she was okay now. Suddenly, they heard a knock at the door, and when told to come in, the doctor entered. He introduced himself as Delphiro and wanted to start the checkup immediately, but he was stunned upon seeing this cute girl holding a lollipop as if it were her mission. Delphiro thought it looked more like a shield than a candy due to its size. However, it was so adorable that it suited her perfectly. The doctor instructed Izeltha to handle the stethoscope because a noble young lady could not be directly examined by a male doctor. As Delphiro noted, her family had not mentioned any specific concerns about her health, but it seemed she had been born with a slightly weaker body. He questioned whether her family had provided any treatment, but she remained silent. Seeing this, he assured her that she would get better, and soon, she would be able to go wherever she wanted without pain. She told him that it was not necessary, knowing that if they couldn't read her mana during this checkup, there was no way they could fix the underlying issue. Nashia stated that as long as she was well enough to have fun, that was all that mattered to her. Upon hearing this, the doctor gave a determined nod, clenched his fist, and told her not to give up. He assured her that he would ensure she recovered. If she felt even a little discomfort, she had to tell him. After a few days of preparation, they would perform a more detailed examination, so she shouldn't overdo it until then. She pondered how she looked like someone who was giving up on life after being told she was terminally ill. All she needed to do was become strong enough to control her mana. That was all. He told her that wherever she went, she must take Izeltha with her. The doctor then took his leave after bowing his head. After the checkup, Izeltha offered Nisha some candy, but Izeltha surprised Nashia by producing a hammer and then began to viciously beat the lollipop shield. Afterward, she presented Nashia with the remains of the shield on a plate. Izeltha was definitely not an ordinary maid, but she was a good person who was kind to her. However, even if the head of the house officially adopted her as their daughter, it remained Izeltha's duty to keep an eye on her and remain conscious of outsiders. It seemed that the doctor had already fallen head over heels for the young lady. Either way, Izeltha reminded herself that she must stay alert and not let her guard down. Nevertheless, Nashia took some of the sweets in her hand and said they were for her, which immediately broke her guard as she thought that this young lady was truly adorable and cute. However, Her nausea, long empty stomach couldn't handle the candy. So for now, it was best to stick to porridge, which led her to wonder how long this child had been starving. As a result, she began to resent the Levois family. In the next scene, it is revealed that the Levois family sent a letter by post. However, the night they had ordered had not returned, and so they had no choice but to send a letter. A few days ago, several mangled corpses were found in the forest, and it's a possibility that they had been sent by the Levois family, the ones who couldn't even handle weak monsters properly and were supposed to be knights. The letter stated that they wanted to know if the bride had safely arrived, which caused a vein to appear on his face. It seemed that they wanted to set the marriage vow schedule. Not only did they send a 5-year-old as a bride, but they also thought he would accept that child as a bride. He decided to write a response to that horrible family, as it seemed that this was about the child he had just adopted. As long as the child didn't abandon the family name, there would be no way for her to leave this family again. Nasha had already become a member of his family as his daughter, he declared. There was no need to adopt her to hold Iter accountable for his deception. If a feud rises over the territory, they could repay the insult and restore honor. But why did he insist on the family adopting that child? It's because he saw something in that child, something that reminded him of the past. Suddenly, the doctor entered the room, having been called earlier. He questioned if he was preparing for the child examination details, commenting that it seemed to be taking longer than expected. The doctor explained that the girl's heart had shrunk so much that the detailed examination was difficult. It felt as though it was entirely squeezed by something. They all noted that she had given some candy to the servants earlier, but even the doctor thought it was a shield. The Duke questioned if something was wrong with that. The doctor continued that everyone naturally wanted some of the young lady's candy. But when the servants gathered, it seemed the young lady became quite frightened, especially feeling the large shadow of an adult looming over her. It appeared the time spent at the Baron's house was more interesting than expected for her. He needed to let her know that she didn't have to worry about that anymore. Later, in bed, she looked at the ceiling. The room had completely changed in just a few days, and she could not comprehend why everyone was being so kind to her. It wasn't because of the mana she held. The doctor seemed to not know magic. In her past life, she would have been happy if they came with a purpose to approach her. She didn't mind helping people, but her former life ended in tragedy, and she couldn't allow that to happen again. These people were far better than those at the Baron's house, but until she figured out their true intentions, she wouldn't trust them anymore. Mare approached her and questioned if she was awake. Nasha told her that she wanted to sleep a little longer. Mare declared that she would tidy up her room while she rested. As Mare left the room, she was happy that they didn't notice. She planned to go on a little outing. She slowly exited her room, staring outside nervously. Suddenly, she noticed something animating from her hand. It seemed to be magic. It was a bit overwhelming, but she could feel the mana filling her up with every breath she took. With luck on her side, she found a rare elixir herb gathering around like weeds. Even the sun was soaked in mana. It could be used as material for magic mana stones. Currently, Nasha thought this place was heaven. Why were such treasures just lying around like this? She looked around, wondering if there was anyone nearby. Seeing that there was no one, she began using mana mist instead of her internal mana. As her body couldn't handle it, she cast an invisibility spell to keep herself hidden. She planned to explore the area where the mana was even thicker. As she made her way, she spotted a huge clam. It seemed to be a clam influenced by mana, but how could it grow this huge? Inside the clam was a muscular area that was completely dried out. It might even work as a table. She entered the clam's interior and sat at the table. She loved everything here. Perhaps it was because she finally felt energetic again, but even her heart felt much lighter. Felt perfect, and this place would be her new hideout. Suddenly, the clam closed, and she was trapped. It was so scary that her heart almost stopped from the shock. She had to calm herself down to stop the pain. Suddenly, she noticed a pink orb levitating above her. It didn't seem like a spell that someone had made. It appeared to have been formed naturally. A thought came through her mind to absorb the mana mist around her. So she started conjuring a magic circle and created a detection spell, so she'd know right away if anyone came near. She tried to touch it but failed miserably, as it kept dodging her attempts. Suddenly, it vanished, and a group of people surrounded the clam, attempting to break the shell. Azelta finally found her and immediately held the child in her hands, ordering everyone to escort the lady back home. It was so scary with everyone suddenly surrounding her. Azelta explained that the clam was an abnormally huge creature caused by inhaling strange mist, so it was best that she didn't go close. Did she have any idea how worried she was about her? This took her aback because, in her past life, she was always the one rushing into danger for someone else. She had never had anyone worry about her like this before. She also wondered what she could gain from being friendly to her, yet Azelta showed such kindness. She questioned her why she liked her. Azelta replied that she wanted the candy the young lady had given her and declared that she was giving something so precious, so of course, she must serve her with all her heart. The candy really worked wonders, she commented. In the future, this awkward dynamic would become the seed for the 8-piece candy clan. Azelta told her to wash her hands and face, then rest well. However, Nisha felt it was strange. She was definitely using an invisibility spell while moving around, so how did they find her so quickly when she was inside the shell? Suddenly, her eyes glanced aside, and she questioned who that person was. Azelta revealed that he was Sir Rosha, who had been ordered to guard this place. Moments later, Rosha entered the room and stood before her. He introduced himself with a certain expression on his face, explaining that he had been ordered by the Duke to serve as her guard. This man was the holder of mystic eyes. The mystic eyes allowed its owner to see intangible mana, granting superior vision compared to others, although they would temporarily lose their sight when fatigued. Looking into his mystic eyes was the clearest she had ever seen. Suddenly, she realized something. She read his memories and saw that her invisibility spell didn't work on him. They realized she had disappeared and found her immediately, even reporting it to the Duke. If they wanted, they could have located her in an instant. Nisha blushed and apologized for staring. It was just that his eyes sparkled so much. Azelta commented that his eyes were an inherited trait from birth and that everyone in his family had the same eyes. It was so surprising that the mystic eye wasn't artificially created. She declared that his eyes were so beautiful, just like jewels. He got down on one knee, took her hand, and declared that he would dedicate his body and soul to serve her. Azelta was glad that Nisha wasn't bothered by his eyes, but Nisha noticed that Rosha seemed uncomfortable. It led her to wonder if these people disliked mystic eyes. In the past, the father of Sir Rosha had wielded a sword and declared that he wasn't imagining things. It wasn't the madame but a monster. His father actually believed that the madame was a monster, and it became gossip among nobles and servants as well. His father kept saying crazy things like, "The madam is a monster," and ended her life. This coming from someone with cursed eyes, just like his father's, was truly disgusting. However, this guy had a hopeful life with his brother, whom he loved dearly. His brother was a bit weak but was okay. He questioned why his brother was in such a good mood. Rosha explained that someone had called him beautiful that day. His brother was surprised that someone called him beautiful, to which the big brother explained that it wasn't him, but his eyes. Upon hearing this, the boy was taken aback, questioning who could have said that. Rosha replied that it was the young lady who just arrived. She said they were like jewels, beautiful and bright. The boy wished he could hear words like that too. After saying hello to Rosha, he seemed to be more comfortable with Nisha. However, she wished he would show his beautiful eyes more often. The sun, the grass, and even this town. All of it felt like peeling back layers of an onion to find hidden charm. Suddenly, she felt something strange. Someone had just gone inside the massive shell. It was instantly broken through with an immense force. She really hoped they didn't discover that she was the one who set up the magic circle. However, if that was the case, she'd just claim it was there before she got in. But she could not stay there forever. She needed to explore and learn more about this world. That's when Azelta questioned if she would like to read some books. She told her yes, as long as they had lots of pictures and words about beautiful trees and skies. She hoped they would bring her a book about the continent's climate and vegetation, or at least something close enough. Instead, she got the fairy on the black boar, a children's book. Luckily, she already knew how to read before being abandoned. When she started reading the book, the first thing she saw was an emperor who banned magic. Emperor Milian could no longer tolerate the mage's oppression, so he banned magic throughout the continent. Some secretly used magic in hiding, but the imperial family ensured they were always caught. Magic is inherently very dangerous. All magic users who are caught are completely eliminated and executed without exception. She was shocked that people were actually executed for being a mage. This isn't just about not being able to use it. If they had detected any mana, she wouldn't be alive right now. And what about that magic circle in the shell? What was she going to do about that? In a moment of desperation, she declared that she was sleepy, so she would sleep for a bit. Once she fell asleep, they all left the room to give her the chance to sneak out with invisibility magic. However, she was being watched by Losha. She really wanted him to leave to eat something, but she had no choice but to wait until the room was empty. Using her magic, she slowly levitated off the floor. She planned to use flight and invisibility at the same time, but it would be a strain on her. However, she managed a little longer. She jumped through the window and levitated with invisibility to the ground. It's best that she raises the magic circle before it's discovered, or if it's already discovered, she must know who found it. When she arrived at the magic clam, the person she saw was the Duke, whose expression was flat and calm. She was stunned. He pondered why Nisha had come here. What could have caught her interest? He hesitated to answer, fearing that the child with a fragile heart might see it as an interrogation. He had no choice but to go there himself. But he was also too afraid to let his childhood fears resurface. There was a day when his brother, who usually hated him, smiled at him kindly. He had told him that he had hidden the sword he wanted inside the clam. It was the knights and servants who laughed at this. He couldn't understand the meaning behind those words until he arrived at the shell. And as he pondered what his brother meant, it closed on him, filling him with fear. As that happened, monsters slowly began to approach the clam. That's when he realized why his brother had sent him here. The knights and servants didn't care if he lived or died. Luckily, the mist hadn't thickened yet. Otherwise, the child might have been in danger, he thought. Suddenly, he looked directly at her and she wondered if their eyes just met. However, she had the invisibility spell active, so that couldn't be the case. She slowly began to climb into the shell, taking him by surprise. He wanted to approach her, but she, oblivious to the fact that he could see her, simply went about her business. However, when she looked directly into his eyes, she realized that he was making eye contact. Even though she was using invisibility magic right now, he could definitely see her. Those who had mastered the pinnacle of swordsmanship could sense invisibility magic, so they can only see faint ripples in the air. But he can even see who she is. How skilled must he be to achieve that? He wondered. She questioned whether this was her space that she frequented, and she responded with a no, deciding to cancel the invisibility. He then questioned why, if it wasn't her space, why she had brought sand here. She declared it was because it was white and pretty, with patches of grass next to it too. He questioned what was special about that, and she explained that those were also pretty. It was fortunate that the Duke harbored no prejudice regarding the standards of beauty. Suddenly, the Duke began to stare off into space, towards an area filled with more mist, so dense that she couldn't even see what was out there. He declared that soon, the mist would engulf the mansion, harboring monsters living beyond the sea. These sea monsters were cunning. Without you realizing it, they would appear before you in a form you knew best. Because of that, he wouldn't be able to come here often for a while. But if she wanted this to be her space, then so be it. He wouldn't come here freely as he pleased anymore. Nisha believed that everything in his estate belonged to him, yet she felt utterly useless right now. Why was he being so considerate to her, to the point that she could no longer hold back? She questioned why the Duke accepted her as his family. He explained that he had an older brother who believed he was a threat to him and to everything related to the title of Duke. His older brother constantly tormented him. When he fell for his lies and ended up trapped in the shell, facing the terror of death, He realized that among the countless people in his family, no one was on his side. After that, he focused on building his strength alone. Thanks to that, his father chose him as the next duke, and he sent away both his brother and all of his lackeys. Still, he was always haunted by the emptiness until he met her, someone who resembled him. He felt that he could give her the things he wished for as a child. He thought it was a good opportunity for both of them. She could escape from the Baron's family, and if she wished, she would be able to get her revenge. It seemed that the terms were mutually beneficial, though it was still far more advantageous for him. However, he pondered whether a 5-year-old child could even understand the story. In the next scene, he noticed that the sunlight had begun to shine on her face. He placed a present by her bedside. He noticed that she seemed to be having a nightmare. It was the first time he had seen her this close since that day. Until this moment, he will wait until she feels that this was a safe place on her own. Approaching her too closely would only increase her weariness. That was how he had been in the past. He was torn. Not having grown strong enough to harm others, he would only wound the one he wanted to protect. So when she fully understood that he was there to be her ally, they could have a proper conversation. As he left her room, he declared his intention to make a doll with a hedgehog design. He ordered his servants to bring us sketches, and he would review them himself. A hedgehog is an animal said to live inland. What the hell does that look like? Nisha sat in bed, realizing that she had slept for 2 days. Azelta commented that she was sleeping so soundly that she couldn't bring herself to wake her. In the meantime, the mist seemed to have drifted away, and sunlight was now shining on their estate. She should be getting plenty of sunlight. Nisha noticed something and questioned what it was. Azelta explained that while she was sleeping, the Duke had come to drop it off. He said he was sorry for entering her room without permission last time, and he had personally picked and prepared a gift for her. A tray with flowers, shells, and a bottle of sand. She was ecstatic. She absolutely loved it. She was already thankful for the apology. But now he was even giving her a gift. She thought this was more than enough. Nisha placed everything on the table. Azelta questioned if she was planning to create something, just as the doctor entered the room. Azelta told him he had come just in time to see the young lady creating something. The woman nodded, saying the young lady had created an enchanted seashell necklace adorned with mystical threads. She declared that it was done. The doctor remarked that she had created a beautifully intricate piece, but now it was time for her checkup. Nisha declared that she wanted to make one for Azelta, Losha, and Delphiro. In the next scene, we see her walking down the hallway, smiling with the necklace in hand. The Duke didn't seem like a bad person, even if he was a bit rough around the edges. She wanted to show him goodwill as quickly as possible. Suddenly, she bumped into someone, causing her to drop the necklace she had made for the Duke. Suddenly, she smelled something strange, the scent of manna. He looked like the Duke but had a cunning expression on his face. The man declared that he had come to visit after hearing about his new niece, but she didn't seem very pleased to see him. Losha stepped in front of the young lady to protect her, as she felt displeased. The man declared, "How dare you show such filthy animal-like eyes?" This made Nisha angry. This guy's eyes looked much dirtier. He then declared that he had come to make a good impression, introducing himself as Cassian von Iter. Suddenly, they declared that he had lost that name. The Duke turned to Losha and ordered him not to put his sword away. Cassian commented that telling his own brother to live like a commoner without his family name was cruel. Nisha replied that he was prohibited from entering the estate unless it was a special family event. Cassian retorted that the child was an event herself, stating that she was like someone reborn as a duke's daughter from a humble baron family. He further commented that his brother was managing the estate poorly, as their trash got all over the hallway. He stepped on the shell. He explained that the Duke is busy, so as her uncle, he would be her friend and keep her company. She exclaimed that she has many friends. Cassian questioned who the friends were who came with her, declaring that those things could never be her friends, and that she is too young to understand that there are people in this world she shouldn't associate with, those who simply aren't worth it. She tells him nice introduction and then walks away. She declares, "Let's go, friends." The Duke declares that if an exile enters due to an event, their maximum stay is 24 hours. Cassian comments that there are people in this world who are not worth associating with, and he is one of them. For a 5-year-old, she's pretty sharp, and he thought he was going to get cut. Meanwhile, in the young lady's room, the servants all watch her from behind the door as she furiously punches the pillow, clearly annoyed. Losha questions if they had put something soft inside the pillow, but luckily, there is only the finest stuffing inside. They think she is not only adorable but also brave, as expected from their young lady. Azelta approaches her and asks if she is very angry. She tells Azelta that yes, she feels like smashing them with that hammer. Azelta retorts with a beautiful smile, assuring her that she will definitely hit them for her later, which makes her really happy. They both decide that, more importantly, she should ask the kitchen to prepare something tasty for her. However, this tasty dish is just the porridge that she eats every day, except next to it is snacks. They made it with easy-to-digest ingredients, and its taste is divine. She feels better coming in, and Azelta reminds her that if there is malice in this place, it could hurt her, but now it's filled with good intentions. Later that night, reflecting thanks to Azelta, she feels much better and should be able to sleep. Suddenly, her eyes open wide as she notices that light is coming into the room. The curtains are supposed to be closed, and she knows that Azelta wouldn't make such a mistake. Out the window is a stalker. Oh wait, no, it's her creepy uncle. He tells her to open the window, but she just ignores him. He declares that if she does not do it, he might fall and die, and rumors might spread that her father took the life of his brother. This surprises her, and he questions if she plans to spend all night like this with him there. She realizes that he's not going to give up so easily, so she gets out of bed and makes her way toward the window. She declares that if he comes in, she'll scream. He comments that he just wants to leave a little gift for his niece. He levitates a pink jewel in her room, remarking that shiny things are fascinating. Aren't they? Since she accepted his gift, he will leave. This gift is a mana stone, an unnatural compression at that. In her previous life, it was so unstable that it was dismissed as being dangerous, but for her uncle to send something like this, why would he do that? She doesn't plan on touching it, thinking it's likely safe for non-mages, and she will ask Azelta to get rid of it. She wonders what he is even up to. The next day, she orders Azelta to get rid of it, explaining that the man from yesterday had come by at night and left it. He said he would do something weird if she didn't open the window. At this very moment, Azelta hugs her tightly. She clarifies that the weird things her uncle mentioned were not about her, but about the Duke. Azelta declares that the Duke is incredibly strong, so she must protect herself more in the future. From now on, no matter what anyone says, she must never open a window for them. If her uncle were truly a threat to the Duke, he would have been dealt with already. But she knows that she is safe as long as Losha is outside, always at the ready. She never expected Azelta to be this worried about her, but as a result, she assures her that she will be more careful from now on. Azelta waits for a moment, then leaves. After a few moments, Losha slips into the conversation, stating that it was his responsibility and he failed. However, she tells him it's her fault for not saying anything. From now on, he will also guard outside the window. Losha remarks that this is the 4th floor, but he declares that yes, he can guard her by hanging from the tree. She says that it's fine, but in that case, he requests to be close to her in order to protect her, which is known as close protection. This would mean he would need to conduct it inside the ladies' room, but that seems like it might impose some restrictions. After all, she can't even use magic in front of Losha. But if it's uncomfortable for her, she will call for another night instead. However, she declares that it's okay if he stays with her. All the people she's met so far have helped her. The sensation she once felt when she was betrayed by Raiton is completely gone, so it's fine. In fact, it feels strangely sweet. In the next scene, Mayor smiles and questions if she is curious about Cassian, and Nishia questions if she likes him. She comments that she only smiled while he was looking at her. The thought of him is unpleasant. She explains that he was banished from Eden a long time ago and that he is a dangerous individual, so she must make sure to stay far away from him. In the past decade or so, the only children in the mansion were Azelta's siblings. Realizing she said something she wasn't supposed to, Mayor quickly closed her mouth and walked away. She wanted to ask further, but this wasn't the right atmosphere to do so. For now, it was worth continuing to gather information about Cassian. She spots a young knight with green hair who seems a bit nervous. He introduces himself as Heinous, a senior knight of the Iter Knights. Nisha asks him the same question, what kind of person Cassian is. Is he even human? He explains that there are always ominous and strange things happening around him. Mist constantly gathers around him, and whole groups of healthy seaweed wither away, which means that the mist and seaweed here must have been infused with magical energy. She questions whether Cassian is good at sports, remarking that he was outside her window yesterday. The knight responds that he heard a story but couldn't believe Cassian would dare to go outside a lady's window. He heard that he's been light on his feet since he was a child. Suddenly, the Duke arrives, coming to address what happened last night. Losha immediately bows to his grace, and in an angry tone, the Duke comments that he told Losha to guard her carefully. However, Nisha intervenes, declaring that he came to her window, so it's not Losha's fault. The Duke declares that if she wishes, he won't punish him, but it seems she's concerned about him. The Duke gently pats her head and declares that he tried to protect her so she wouldn't get caught up in any trouble. But still, he hopes she will avoid dangerous situations from now on. As he pats her head awkwardly, one knight informs the Duke that he has already gathered the troops to go to the Sea of Mist. Before the Duke leaves, she tells him to wait and presents him with a necklace she made. She was going to give this to him last time, but Cassian stepped on it. She remade it with the remaining materials, but it was really small and it didn't fit. She barely managed to make it again. He thanks her for her precious gift, and she is surprised to see the Duke smile. Later, she inquires whether they saw that he accepted it. This is the first time Azelta has seen the Duke so happy about something, and they are all pleased that she gave him a gift. There were 2 necklaces, so who will she give the other one to? She declares that she'll give it to Delphiro, but who should she give the last one to? Suddenly, someone knocks on the door, and she tells him to come in. Then a knight enters and clarifies that there's a message for Sir Losha. It is the Duke's order for him to go to the Dias estate immediately. Didas ordered that stone to be placed quickly near the mansion, and Lord Losha commanded him to head out. Nisha wonders how a rock came to arrive at their house. Losha comments that he has nothing to say on the first day of close protection, but he requests to leave. She tells him to go ahead as it must be an urgent matter. Upon leaving, Azelta shows a sudden expression of concern. Nisha questions why they keep the stone near the house, and Azelta explains that the stone temporarily clears the mist. It's likely a measure for a friend of her age. Nisha asks if he has a son, and Azelta explains that he has a younger brother. Nisha holds her necklace and questions if Sir Losha's younger sibling is too sick to meet. In the next scene, the Duke questions if she is planning to go to the Dias estate. This is a time when monsters are rampant, and soon the mansion will be engulfed in mist, and thick fog will settle between the Dias estate and this mansion, making it impossible to see even an inch ahead of you, which means it is dangerous. Nisha explains that she will just be gone for a little bit. She will deliver the gift and return immediately. The sea fog may be manageable for now, but there are conditions. Firstly, she must travel with at least 1 squad of soldiers. Secondly, she must obtain a statement from her attending physician confirming that the long journey will not strain her. She is surprised that he agreed so quickly, but she decides to pretend that she didn't understand. Azelta explains that with Delphiro's permission, she can go with him accompanied by 10 knights. The Duke ponders whether he should have explained it a bit simpler. After that, they take their leave. The Duke had never stopped her from doing what she wanted, yet she thought he refused and tried to persuade him. She must need more time to open her heart to him, he thinks. He is curious why she keeps calling him Your Grace, even though he clarified their relationship on the first day. It is possible that his words were too difficult to understand. In the letter, it is stated that if Nisha wishes, she shall be adopted as his daughter and heir. He grips the paper, crumpling it up, believing that this might be too difficult for her. Meanwhile, she questions if she can go now, but the doctor tells her that her heartbeat is still unstable. Suddenly, she places her hand on his cheek and questions if she's healthy. He lowers her hand, clutching his heart, declaring that she is still unstable and her stamina does not seem fit for a long journey. She places the necklace in his hands and declares that if he says she is healthy, she will grant him anything next time. For a moment, he thinks about what she said and declares that he'll accept the necklace she gave him. But if she expects him to change his opinion, then he will definitely not. He will ensure that the statement letter is well written, but she shouldn't pretend to be fine if she is unwell. Suddenly, she feels a pain in her chest. She quickly tells him that she was just happy, so she couldn't help it. The document states that her heart rate is significantly weaker compared to other children her age. Her overall health is also poor, despite displaying great enthusiasm to bribe with the offering of deals. Her stamina is insufficient, and even traveling by carriage would likely exhaust her. Delphiro acknowledges this, but he must prohibit her from going out. However, if he opposes this trip, it may have a detrimental effect on the relationship between him and her. But if that is the case, what should he do? It is obvious he has no choice but to accept her demands and make a comfortable carriage for her, so she can look outside. She can also rest and relax as this journey will take 3 hours. After a while, she lies in the carriage, and Azelta places a blanket over her. Then she wakes up when Azelta questions if she slept well. Nisha tells them that they should have woken her up, as she wanted to look outside. Azelta explains that she was sleeping, so they didn't want to disturb her, but they are almost at the Dias estate. Once they arrive, she can look around for herself. When she arrives at the estate, she is greeted by her faithful knight. She realizes that the place smells like medicine. The doctor declares that he must go attend to someone as they are the patient that needs him. Count Losha decides to change into his uniform, but Nisha tells him that it's fine. She came here unannounced it because he wanted to give her friend a gift. Since Losha's younger sibling is the same age as her, that makes her Losha's friend's older brother, doesn't it? Then there's no need for all these formalities in the mansion. Losha thanks her for her thoughtfulness. His younger sibling's condition has improved so much that giving gifts right now might be a bit difficult. However, she tells him that she will visit again when her friend feels better. In the meantime, he will prepare some refreshments. As he prepares the refreshments, she questions what is wrong with her friend. Suddenly, she senses an unusual magical energy beyond the door. If it were a monster, Losha would have noticed it immediately. Losha's younger sibling is still suffering from severe headaches and heart pain since birth. About once a month, they have a major episode, and recently the episodes have been more frequent. Suddenly, Delphiro barges in and questions if Fry is still having periodic seizures these days. Nisha feels a bit stunned by the situation. Azelta tells him that if he barges in like that, he scares the young lady, and he apologizes as he acted on instinct as he always does. Nisha declares that not what surprised her. She questions why the three of them are all talking informally to each other. Delphiro comments that they are all the same age, so it's natural. Nisha is stunned that they are all the same age. Azelta understands why she called Delphiro an old man before, but among them, he is the youngest, born in December. She gives him a thumbs up as physical appearance doesn't really matter for humans. Plus, someone out there might even find him attractive. Azelta tells him not to be so gloomy, but he shouldn't drag them down at their age. Suddenly, she feels that strange presence again. She rushes off, declaring that she needs to use the restroom for a moment. She declares that she'll go by herself and that they should have fun with their friends. Azelta comments that she doesn't even know where the restroom is, but judging by the sound of her footsteps, it seems like she is heading toward Frey's room. In a moment, she finally arrives at the door. This is where that ominous magical energy is coming from. Upon opening the door, she sees a boy breathing heavily, who seems to have a fever. Her heart aches as she realizes he must have been through so much during this time. She questions if he is okay. If she hadn't come, things could have turned disastrous. Mana circulates tangled throughout his body. This is what is called awakening fever, which happens before a mage is fully awakened. The amount of mana is already extraordinary. Living in such a dense, foggy area must have only increased the mana buildup. They wouldn't have survived past the age of 7. If the mana circuits are properly untangled, There will be a temporary but significant improvement. With repeated corrections, they could fully recover. In her previous life, this shouldn't have been an issue at all. But this is a world where magic is forbidden. So, she has to make a decision. Does she let him die painfully now or live as a criminal for the rest of her life? This isn't a decision she can make on her own. That's when she notices a book titled Perennial Plant Encyclopedia. Even on the bookshelf, she saw more knowledge of the swamp, observing plants in forest environments. All these books point to an outside world, but they must have been trapped in this mansion their whole life. She questions if he wants to leave. Does he want to explore the world outside? He slightly shakes his head in agreement. Then they must keep this a secret. Whatever power he gains from now on, he must keep it a secret. She begins to cure his mana flow. In the next scene, she is in bed, and Azelta declares that she is awake. She feels that she had a dream where she went to visit her friend to give them a necklace, and then Azelta declared that it wasn't a dream. She collapsed on her friend's bed, so they brought her back. She is curious about whether she really thinks that just because she untangled the mana circuits a couple of times, they are healthier than before, but still far from recovery. Azelta reports that yesterday, the Duke and Delphiro will come soon to check her condition. She is a bit worried, as meeting the doctor right after her collapse from overwork, she is going to get scolded to a terrifying extent.